Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, allow yourself to drift gently, far from the worries of the modern world. Let your mind slip softly into the sands of time, to a land where the sun rose in golden silence and sacred rituals guided the quiet rhythm of life. You are about to visit ancient Egypt, not the Egypt of pyramids and battles, but a gentler world. The quiet courtyards of temples, the sacred routines of priests who walked slowly, spoke softly, and dedicated their days to peace, order, and the divine. As you listen, imagine soft linen rustling, the scent of warm myrrh floating through shaded halls, a distant bell echoing in the stone stillness of early morning. This is your time to relax, to rest, to wander through ancient rituals made of silence, devotion, and rhythm. Now, close your eyes and let us begin. As the first rays of sun touched the limestone walls of Thebes, a slow warmth spread over the horizon. The desert was still, save for the faint calls of morning birds. Inside the temple complex, long shadows stretched across sandstone courtyards. The priest rose early, before the city stirred, before the markets opened, before a single servant stoked a fire. The priest stood in silence. His linen robe, simple and white, had been folded neatly the night before. Dressing was quiet, precise, every motion slow, as if the day were not something to rush, but something to invite. He began with water, cold from a clay jar, drawn at dusk. He poured it gently over his hands, then his face. The act was more than hygiene. It was purification, symbolic, essential. To enter the sacred spaces, one had to be clean of spirit and skin. The temple corridors were cool and still. He walked alone, barefoot across polished stone, hearing only the soft tap of his steps echo through columns older than memory. By the shrine's entrance, he paused. He bowed, low, 3 times, then lifted the wooden latch and slipped inside. In the deepest chamber of the temple, where only select priests were allowed, sat the shrine of the god. Wrapped in gold, veiled in linen, the sacred statue had slept through the night. The morning ritual was called the awakening. With great care, the priest opened the wooden doors of the shrine. A soft creak echoed like a whisper. There was no rush. The air smelled faintly of oils and age. The priest would greet the god aloud, but in a voice so soft it was barely more than breath. "Awake, beloved. The sun has risen again. Ma'at endures." Ma'at, the principle of order, balance, and truth. Then came dressing the god. Fine linen wrappings, freshly woven. Necklaces of carnelian and lapis. Tiny jars of perfumed resin placed at the feet. Finally, a fresh offering. Dates, figs, flatbread, and a small cup of wine. Though the god would not eat, it was the gesture, the ritual, that mattered. As the statue was honored, so was order maintained. In the late morning light, the temple filled with the slow burn of incense. Frankincense, myrrh, and kifi, an ancient mixture made of herbs, honey, and wine. The smoke curled through the air in soft spirals. It carried prayers upward. Priests chanted in low, rhythmic tones. But this was no performance. Their voices barely carried beyond the columns. It was not meant for the crowds. It was for the gods, for the air, for the moment. Outside, the city had awakened. The river bustled with reed boats. Children laughed in courtyards. Merchants called out prices for fish and linen, but inside the temple, the world was still. Sometimes the priest would simply sit in meditation, listening to the flicker of a flame, to the sound of a bird nesting in a distant crevice, to the nothingness that only deep peace can offer. Time in those moments disappeared. There was no past, no future, only the ritual, only the breath. By midday, the heat had settled over the land. Even the sun seemed to move slower. The priest moved through the temple's garden, small shaded spaces with pools of water and papyrus reeds. Lotus flowers floated silently, open to the sun. Here he collected herbs, basil, mint, and holy sycamore, some for ritual, some for healing, some just to maintain the temple's scent of sacred cleanliness. Offerings were placed anew, bowls of fruit were refreshed, oils poured in tiny lamps, wicks trimmed. Sometimes villagers came to ask for prayers. The priest would sit quietly with them. He did not promise miracles, only listening, only peace. A soft hand on a shoulder, a word spoken like wind over water. The temple was not a place of drama, it was a place of calm. As the sky began to turn gold again, the priest began the closing rites. The statue was thanked, cleaned once more, and veiled. He whispered, "Rest now, beloved. Night comes. Ma'at remains." The doors were closed, lamps extinguished, ash collected from, and like the gods he served, he too found peace in ritual and drifted into sleep.